Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, or good night, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to OmniPixel Gaming, our Twitch channel where we're starting to put out some new shows. My name is Tree Frog, and I'm here with you for a brand new show called Behind the Pixels. We're here to talk to the makers, the creators, and the artists as part of our community and out into the big old internet. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see who we end up interviewing over the next little while. We're really excited to start meeting people who make things. We want to see what they do, how they do it, and what they create. Today, we have OmniPixel's Gaming's own David Johnson, better known as Boktai. I'm going to stumble over his name because I'm used to calling him Boktai, but this is David Johnson. Some of you don't know, but David has notoriety that predates Twitch and predates OmniPixel Gaming. He was an EDM artist, a DJ, a performer, a creator, and a producer, kind of as part of the EDM trance movement in the 2000s. So, okay, you guys, he even has a wiki page under the duo of David and Carr. Go look. You get to see baby Boktai.
Oh my gosh, that was a long time ago. And hello, everyone. And thank you, Tree, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here and letting us talk. And hi, David. They're doing well. So,
hi.
Welcome to everyone here, and it's good to see you, and I have to not get distracted by that. So, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your music career. I'd heard little bits about this as we've been working together and doing different things. But I was curious. First of all, you guys, the intro music before the little intro, the music while you all were waiting was part of Boktai's playlist, part of some music that he made back in the day. But I was curious, how did you get started with the whole music thing? What was it like?
Well,
what happened?
This is going to be an epic journey for yourself and for all of the viewers, for y'all to actually kind of find out how I got to where I was. So this is going to sound corny as hell. I'm just going to be real and level with y'all. It's going to sound corny, but back in 1999, we were on summer vacation down at the beach in Gulf Shores, Alabama, which you would think out of all places to discover like EDM music, like true, like trance and house music. Because before that, I listened to like all the 90s pop, which everybody knows, like Rhythm is a Dancer and What is Love, you know, all those kind of cliche 90 almost Eurodance songs was what it's considered now. But I digress. So back then we were on a summer vacation and we were at this outlet mall. And while I was there was a CD and a vinyl shop. And so I just went in and I started browsing around. First time I'd ever been in an actual like record store in my life. And I found a CD that Paul Van Dyke had mixed. It was back when like mixed EDM, trance, house kind of CDs are really popular, the compilations. I got it. And I listened to that for the next year straight till the next vacation. I had one of those Sony CD player Walkmans with like the clear top that was blue. I literally wore that thing out listening to the CD. And that's honestly like when I fell in love with EDM and that kind of style of music. So we got back home and like my family's always been very musical. There are stories for when I was like a toddler, I'd go to my grandmother's house and I'd just bang on her piano, not even knowing what I'm doing, but sitting there like somewhat playing notes in the right harmonic order. And like apparently on my mom's side, music goes all the way back to like the 1800s of singers and musicians in the family. But anyways, so continuing on where it kind of led to, a few years later, I got my first little like cheap kind of electric pianos, like what they sold in Radio Shack back then. And so I started kind of learning and teaching myself how to play the piano. And I will tell all the viewers this right now. I was never officially trained on any music till I hit 7th grade. So everything up before 7th grade, I kind of taught myself, but even after seventh grade, I got the basic education because I did like marching band and all of that in school. I played the alto sax, and we'll kind of just jump to about my ninth grade year, my freshman year going into my sophomore year of higher education in high school. And I started learning a program called Fruity Loops. Now, Fruity Loops is still around to this day. People still use it to make music, but I actually had downloaded an illegal copy of it, which took forever on internet back then.
We won't talk about
Yeah.
that this time, though. Legal software, folks.
and,
Legal software.
and there used to be, everybody remembers like the magazines that were out in the early 2000s. You could go in Barnes and Noble, pretty much anywhere, and they would be, music. So music creation, they had them for like PlayStation and stuff where they had like those little like demo CDs and stuff in it. Well, in the computer music and the future music magazines, that's where I would get like all of my samples, like the free virtual instruments to use. Well, we skip ahead a few years to my junior year in high school. I internet radio starting to blow up at that time because that's when you had things like DI.FM. Everybody was listening through like Winamp to digital radio stations while they were playing games and doing everything like that. We're like, while they basically when the computer lifestyle started taking off. Um, so I got a radio show at a place called party107.com. That website is still up. It's almost like a time machine going and looking at that site because half the DJs, half the talent, the on-air talent that was there, they're not there anymore.
No.
But I got my first radio show. And let me tell you, I had no damn clue what the hell I was doing. I was just there playing music, not even actual like DJing. I was just playing songs that I had found over that day or that week before my show and put together and put out. Well, I met another DJ on that radio station called Greg Corbett. And that is where the first like production duo came about. It was Johnson and Corbett. And at this time, I had finally gotten a beat for your computer. I got a program called Cubase. I actually had some hardware synthesizers set up and I was learning how to write and use them. And this was back when we still had to sequence everything through little tech jargon, but like an actual like MIDI box that had to be in the rack unit of all of the hardware because it still had to transcode the analog signal to digital for the computer to read what you were doing. Nowadays, it's so easy. It's just plugging in a USB and bing, bang, boom, it's done. But started off with that and released, I think, 5 or 6 tracks under Johnson and Corbett. By the time I was 16, I had 5 or 6 releases out, including one of them got remixed by the group known as Alpha Zone. Back in the early 2000s, they were huge in the trance music scene. Like you would see people like Armin van Buuren, Paul Van Dyke, all of these people playing their songs at like Ibiza and Miami and the EDM music festivals that were starting out. You would see all of that. And so I was stoked. Like that was the moment of hooked in. I can do this. I can create music. I can make it work. I love it. And so we went on to do a few more tracks together as Johnson and Corbett. But then Greg had to step away from music production. He had a baby boy, got married, went through life.
Can I back you up a little bit? Were you guys working on this digital, like, were you working on this virtually back then? Were you in the same room? Were you working on it over the internet?
This was all old school MSN Messenger to give everybody the time frame that this was happening on. We were using MSN Messenger to communicate back and forth, sometimes IRC chat. If anybody's old enough to know what like MIRC or IRC chat was back then, like that is how you would communicate across the world, especially with another producer. And he was actually in Vancouver, Canada. It's where Greg was from. So I would work on a music file, bounce it down, send it over to him. And I would, by the time I got up, went to high school, came back home, I would be lucky if that file was done sending to him. But as I said, we kind of parted ways just due to real life. And
Mhm.
so then I started kind of exploring things solo. And then that is what led into me going to etn.fm and meeting up with Peter Carr, which David and Carr is what everybody really knows me from.
So, at this point, had you done any live performing yet?
Yes, I had done a few local gigs. I
Mhm,
actually did some gigs at some clubs in Little Rock that I was not even old enough to walk into that club, but
mhm,
I had done a few gigs, some underground parties, because that was kind of the time that we'll just make it simple, the rave scene was starting to take off in the US,
mhm.
outside of the cliche 90s rave scene.
Hey, what's wrong with the cliche 90s rave scene?
The rave kids. I mean, come on now. You remember those outfits. We're old enough to remember those outfits.
Yeah, I scowled at them from behind my plaids. Um, definitely. So, do you remember your first live performance? Like, do you remember that feeling? What was it like?
I'll be honest, I was nervous as fuck my first live performance. Like, it was, even though it was only to like 20 people
Mhm,
at like this underground warehouse party down by the river in Little Rock, I was nervous as hell because at that time I was using um equipment that I was not like when I walked in to do that gig, it wasn't the equipment I had sitting at home. It was like this high-end CD players, like stuff I hadn't even touched yet. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out all this crap while I'm trying to just sit there and look like I have my shit together behind the decks.
mhm. I know that feeling very well. Definitely. So, how did you meet how did you connect with Carr? Like, how did that happen?
So he was working at etn.fm as a show counselor, basically somebody that when a talent reached out to the station and said, "Hey, I would like to see about getting a show," he would then work with them, like review their music or review like their DJ sets. You would basically do like a demo set and present like a demo radio show, and you would present that to them, then they would review it. Well, he was the guy that was kind of reviewing it and working back and forth with, I guess you'd call that an agent nowadays,
Mhm.
um, with me. But then he had heard one of the songs that I had done under Johnson and Corbett way, way, way back before I had even sent my stuff. And then as we talked and he found out who I was, he was like, "Shit, dude, you want to do?" I remember the conversation exactly in AIM Messenger. He was just like, "Shit, dude, you want to do a radio show together?" And I said, "Why not? It'll be easier. I'm not trying to do like show each week after each week after each week, trying to plan it out while still being a high schooler and having a life." So I was like, "Hey, this is great. I'm going into my senior year. Let's go for it." And that was kind of the birth of David and Carr.
Mm. All right. Should we play some music from back then?
Sure.
All right. What are we playing, Boktai?
If you want to kind of give our viewers a good sampleation of, let's say we'll start with like the Johnson and Corbett stuff to kind of give them some familiar words. Basically, give them a taste of what like the early music was that I did and how like cringeful it is to me nowadays. Um, I would say scroll down and I would either play The Way from Johnson and Corbett, or you could play the Ibiza Sunrise. Either one of those.
All right. So this is a song called The Way. I think my audio will catch it. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay.
There we go.
Show me the way. Won't you show me the way? Won't you show me
Man, just hearing this brings back so many memories of working on this song.
This is the whole download for days kind of music. This is that pure time frame, right?
Exactly. This was all done on analog hardware. Nothing was digital in this entire song.
Whose voice is that sample? That is a good question.
That sample, oh, I want to say it came from like a Future Music like vocal sample CD they had put out with one of their magazines. And so I was just like, hey, because I had like we had gotten the whole track written out, and I was just like, you know what? It needs that little spice, that little something. And I said, I'm gonna slap this on there and we'll call it a day. And it just worked out perfectly.
Excellent. Someone really wants you to say hi to the camera. Altered really wants to talk to you. He's really wants your attention.
Aw. Hello, Arthur. Thank
There
you,
you
sexy
go.
voice.
Look at you have volunteers in the the audience to be on
Yay.
next time, huh? So okay, connected with Carr. I don't remember Carr's first name, but that's okay. We'll just call him Carr.
You can call him Peter. I mean, Peter was his name. I always
Okay.
just called him Pete.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I know all that is because that's where the wiki page is, y'all. David and Carr. So just so you know, if you ever want to go have a look.
Yes, you can spy on my past.
And so at that point, it sounds like things started to gain momentum. Like you were starting to work with like Moonshine Records and those kind of people, Flash Tracks, Black Hole, Alter Ego, those kind of things. That was in that time frame, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we did the initial, like we did just like DJ mix sets for our radio show, did the whole shebang. I mean, pretty much now what people are used to hearing on like Armin van Buuren's A State of Trance, or if you have like Sirius XM radio and you turn to like channel 52 or 51 and you hear the shows on there. That's what we were doing. And that's what everybody was kind of doing back during that time to expand their audience. And then eventually Pete was like, hey, I've been playing piano since I was 5 years old. My parents put me through class. I want to learn how to produce. Well, I had more of the back end knowledge of the production process, how to like, mess around and tweak the synthesizers, get the sounds right. And I said, all right, why don't you send me over a melody to work with? And so he sent me over a melody to work with. I think I spent a week on it. And then I was just like, shit, dude, listen to this. And I sent him back like a composition. It was really basic. It had me playing a little bit of acoustic guitar on it, some drum samples, and the chord progression he had written, the melody he had written. And he was like, okay, well, I got one for you. I work and go to school with this girl called Jenna. She is in the choir at the college I'm going to. She really likes trance music. She wants to be a vocalist. And I said, all right, bet. You got anything for her to record? We both kind of sat there for a moment and we're like, crap, I've never actually had to write out lyrics for a song. So I kind of sat back and I scribbled and scribbled and scribbled and scribbled and scribbled for days. And this is going to sound cliche, y'all. I finally came up with lyrics that reminded me of a past relationship that wasn't very, very good, but it triggered kind of that creative state of like, hey, this would be a good way to deal with that issue. But it's also going to sound very cliche that it makes a good song lyric. Like it makes a good lyrical tell in the story. So he did that. And then that is where the very first David and Carr song came from, Every Day. And literally the moment we started sending that out, we got a message back from Alter Ego Records. And they're like, we want this song. We want to sign this song. And we were just like, dope. You're becoming like, you're not the biggest trance music label, but you're an up and coming label that is really blowing up. And we had actually already in our radio shows played like several songs from their catalog and from all of their artists they had signed. And so once that happened, there was a pretty big DJ known as Mr. Sam. He did a compilation album every year called Opus. He basically went past Altered Ego and came to us because he had a show on ETN.FM, and he goes, I want to put you on this compilation. And so that got signed to that compilation, and that is kind of like the start of the ramp that just went with David and Carr. Because once it got on that compilation, every DJ wanted to play the song. We had people lining up to be like, hey, can we remix this song? And let me tell you, that was the start of a very fun time in my life.
Can we hear some of that song?
Sure.
Let's listen to it. While chat is calling each other cute and each themselves cute, you know.
I was just going to say, the good thing is this isn't a super long one, as it is just a radio mix of it. And I'll give you a little insider about this. Jenna had recorded her vocals in all the wrong key. So like I had to go through and manipulate all of the vocals to make sure they were on key with the rest of the song.
So you've been talking about trance, and now chat is kind of talking about tempo and those kind of things. What is trance? Like when you talk about trance music, and I actually saw on your wiki page that sometimes you're defined as hard trance.
Yeah, so back in my early days, hard trance was kind of like, you had two sounds of trance. You had like the classical, like 15-minute long trance song that people could get lost in. And then you had kind of this hard trance that was like Alpha Zone, that was like Scott Project, that was just really banging and in your face is the best way to describe it. Like you just wanted to just bounce around and have fun and dance. And hard trance is what gave birth to like the hard style and all of that elements are used from now in like modern music, modern EDM. It kind of gave birth to all that. So you took like the great musical elements of trance, but then you just stacked it to just like this pounding bass drum and bass line that was just like boom, 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 boom. And as a teenager, that was really exciting to me because, you know, it's energetic. It's bouncing off the walls like I was as a teenager.
I think the chat agrees with you.
And then trance started evolving in the early 2000s. The kind of sound you're going to hear of what the David and Carr sound is, it kind of gives you like what the evolution of trance was in the early 2000s. You went from like this hard banging, powerful sound to this more melody driven, tell a story, even if there's no vocals in it, the melody, the exposure of the song. The idea behind trance is you get lost in a trance. Like if you're at a rave, you lose yourself in the music. As cliche as that sounds, it's kind of that music that you can get lost in your own thoughts too.
It almost sounds like when you're describing it there about the journey and that kind of thing, it almost sounds like it's influenced by classical music and the idea about, you know, that kind of different movements and those kind of things. And you can hear that in the way the songs move through too.
Best way to describe trance is you're 100% right. Most of EDM's chord structures, even to this day, in any form of genre of EDM, owes its roots to blues and classical music. For its chord productions, it's the way the key scales are used. And a lot of trance music was actually born out of this hybrid mash of progressive rock like Pink Floyd smacked together with old school like house music, like disco sound almost. And that gave birth to trance.
That makes a lot of sense. So they like that one. We'll have to see if we can get some more played in a little bit.
Yeah.
So I hear you talking about producing, and I hear you talking about creating. And were you ever producing music with other, like for other artists? Or when you say production, are you talking about producing your own?
It's a little bit of everything because I enjoyed before I actually got into the DJing side. I really enjoyed the production side. That is something that even to this day still speaks to me. Is I love just writing the music. The essence of taking like one simple sound and making this entire song out of it. But I would literally come home from school, even in the time between Johnson and Corbett and David and Carr, and when most kids would sit down and play games or do God knows what till it was time for them to go to bed, I would be sitting right there in front of my piano and the computer and the synthesizers trying to write songs. And I actually did some ghost producing towards the end of David and Carr. So ghost production is basically where you write songs or you do an entire song for another artist and they get to put their name on it. But hey, you did the work. So you can be like, hey, this is yours. I did do some of that, which was fun because it'll let me experiment with different styles, different genres I wasn't really at that time interested in. But I also got a lot of ghost engineering production work. So the back end of taking an entire song and doing like the EQing and the compressing and the final mix down on it, I got to do a lot of that, which taught me a ton being a self learner. Honestly, in music production, I'll say this for any creative thing for anybody out there. You can go to school, you can read books, you can do all this, you can have people tell you all day long, this is how you do this and this and this. But get in there, get hands on. That self learning experience is the best way to grow your art form in any way because you're going to learn what your expression is as a human being, how you express your emotions, your feeling, your happiness, your joy. And that's what music creation was for me, was that was my outlet.
Which is where the best art comes from, regardless of genre. It
It
sounds like you
is.
sounds like you had some good um like some good collaborations too that were really important. Did any of the collaborations, did you have to learn anything about working together in some of that?
So back in the time frame I was working at, there was some that I would work from the UK. There was maybe I would say handful of US based artists back then in the trance music scene. Most of them were either the UK or they were from the Netherlands. The hardest thing for me is I had to actually start learning a little bit of Dutch to be able to, because Google Translate wasn't that good back then. Let me tell y'all, even though they can speak pretty much better English than I can, a lot of them, sometimes like when you're working back and forth super fast, even in the early days of like Skype calling and like Ventrilo and Mumble back then, trying to talk to each other while working, they would just start going off in their native language, trying to describe or explain things. So I kind of had to be like, yo, can you start teaching me? And so there was a few artists that when I was working with them, I'd be all right, teach me what this word means. Explain this to me. And that made me more amped and wanted to work with people from the Netherlands. Cause I will tell you what, almost every big EDM artist out there in the world now, not all of them, but almost all of them all come from the Netherlands or the surrounding areas like Norway, Finland, that area. And I found out years later the reason why is they have such a push for creativism and musicality from very young ages. It's part of their education program from the moment they hit Montessori school.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, there's something, if you're looking at the North American market too, there's something to be said for that kind of, oh, this is really cool. It's from Europe, right? To get your foot in
Yeah,
the door, as opposed to kind of another American. It's like, oh, these people are from, here. It feels like a little worldly. You get to be a little bit worldly when you're listening to it too.
exactly.
Another part of that transport. I am wondering if we want to take a quick break and then talk about your touring.
Sure.
Are we at that point?
Yeah, I'm good for that.
All
I'm sure
right.
everybody wants to hear all the gossipy stories I have from touring.
So we're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to thank everyone for the bits and the subs and all those kind of things. And we'll come back in just like 5 minutes. I need a drink of water. We're going to hear all about, yes, music break. We will find some music. Boktai's in my computer right now looking for some good music to play for y'all, I'm sure. And thank you for the follow. And we will see you guys in about 5 minutes. All right. So tell me about the first tour. How'd it happen?
Okay. So the first the first major international gig, we got to roll back just a little bit before I met Peter. This was right at the end of Party 107 timeframe. I was working with a friend called Mac out of the Netherlands, and we had gotten to be really close. Like, we got so close that he named his daughter's stuffed animal toy that I brought her, because she was just born before I went over there to do this gig. I brought her a stuffed animal. He named it Wesley, which is my middle name. I mean, it's out there on the wiki now that y'all are all finding out everything about me. But that's like how close we were. And so I got invited to play a solo gig in the Netherlands at the small club called the LVC, which, I say small club, we're talking 200-300 people. But to them, again, in the Netherlands, that's a small club to go see a DJ at. So I went over there, nervous as hell. First time I'd gone international by myself. I flew from Memphis, Tennessee to Amsterdam nonstop. So I left here on a March sunny day. It was like 70, almost 80 outside. I was in shorts and a t-shirt. Got there and had to go buy like a leather jacket and like blue jeans at the airport in Amsterdam. And I met up with my friend Nick. Again, I wasn't even 21 yet, but I could have a beer over there. So the first thing we did, because he was from the UK, we went and found the Heineken bar in the airport and got a Heineken. And then from there, it was just, I'll be real, it was a late teenager's dream. Like, it was this experience. You're in Amsterdam at 17 years old. Like, you're getting toured down the red light district. For anybody that knows what the red light district is, at 17, you're touring, like, you're walking around Amsterdam, but you're being treated by like all of the people from the club and the hotel. You're being treated like the celebrity because you're an artist that was brought in to do a show, and they respect that kind of creativity, that kind of, hey, you're from America, you're here to do a show, you must be somewhat big. Though they had no damn clue that I was just some nobody from Little Rock, Arkansas. So that was cool. I played my set. Probably I would rate that as one of the top 10 shows I ever did. And that's because it was like that first true international gig. Then after Everyday released, David and Carr started blowing up. We weren't big enough to like start booking like really huge gigs. We did some small here and there. We did things like, I remember doing a show in the Lizard Lounge down in Texas. We did some at some hole in the wall in Oklahoma City. I don't even remember the name of. Did some more around like the Midwest and up north, the Wisconsin area. Then
That's an up north Boktai.
It is to me.
Sorry.
But we got entered into a contest. Tiesto, many of y'all in this chat will know the name Tiesto. He was going to be doing a show at a club in St. Paul, Minnesota called Myth. And we didn't do this, but somebody entered one of our like songs and DJ sets without our knowledge into this competition. And the competition was getting to open for Tiesto at this club. We had no clue till literally the day that the winner was drawn. Like, the staff at ETN was coming to us and being like, guys, did you see this? And we're going, huh? And then the next thing I know, Peter's getting a call from like the booking manager for that club and everything, and being like, yo, congratulations, you won the contest. You are opening for Tiesto. And I'm going like, shit. It was one of those moments that it kind of hits you because you're thinking, okay, Tiesto is like one of these people. Every young DJ back then idolized him, and Armin van Buuren, Ferry Corsten, Paul Van Dyke, the big names in the industry. You were just like, holy crap, is this really happening? Am I being punked right now? I went for Ashton Kutcher to come out of the bathroom. Like,
either way, fresh with fame.
Right. it happened. So my dad, okay, funny story. My dad took off work, flew with me to St. Paul, Minnesota, and we got a hotel room. It was the night before the gig. Went out to eat with Peter, caught up, had fun. Like met his girlfriend, which is now his wife. And we kind of shared, like, we actually sat in the hotel room, like tweaking a new song to premiere at that opening. We were just like, holy shit, this is our chance to get our name out. This is it. And so the night gets here. I am nervous as all hell. Like, I'm in the bathroom throwing up my guts because I'm like, it's that moment. I am about to open for Tiesto. Well, we get on stage. We hit play on the very first song, which was a intro edit of Hydroid's remix he had done for Every Day. We took his remix and kind of tweaked it a little bit and made like this intro for our set. And from like that moment on, I was just, honestly, I was in heaven. Like the videos are out there on YouTube. Just go look up David and Carr at Myth nightclub. And you will see, like, there's two videos. There's one of when we were playing the opening track for the set. And then there's one when we dropped the track Lost in London, which we were in the hotel room the night before trying to finish to play at that set. That being said, we played that set. And like, I came off the stage with like this high. I'm like, holy wow, I want to do that again. That was fun. Because we're talking like 600 people like clapping when I clap on stage. If I'm jumping around, they're jumping around. If I wave my arms, they're waving my arms. Let me tell you, that is an addicting feeling for that to happen. And watching these people go through, like, as we're doing our DJ set, watching these people go through the journey that we're crafting as the DJs behind the deck, because that is your job as a DJ. You're there to craft a story for the people that are on the dance floor. You don't want to just come right out of the gate doing like 190 BPM, just smack, 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 smack. You're going to wear out your audience. But you want to start kind of slow and build up to the epic energy moments. And that kind of became our style for our sets. And anyways, so Tiesto goes on stage, does his thing. We're sitting backstage. We got to stay on the stage off to the side while he was on the stage performing. So I'm sitting there literally watching one of my idols, probably not even 10 feet away from me, doing his DJ set. And I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. This is crazy. Well, we get off stage. We're in the green room. Tiesto comes back with his manager and everything in the green room, invites us to finish the North American tour with him as his opener.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, could you?
Yeah, we did. But I was just like, it was one of those moments that you say yes to immediately, but then it doesn't hit you till like 10, 15 days later. You're just like,
years.
Holy crap, that actually happened. And so we finished his Elements of Life tour as his opener in North America. And that was the moment that everything changed.
So, first time you're sitting in the green room, you got this massive high, performer's high. And if there's other high, we're going to, was there a crash?
I don't think anything will top a performer's high.
Yeah. Is there a crash?
Yeah, there is. When it's all said and done, before we started going in, like, touring with him, it was, I think, a week and a half before we had to catch the next plane and go with him to Miami. I actually had writer's block. Like, I sat down at the studio setup and I'm sitting here going, I know we need to get another song out. It's time to get another track done. I couldn't come up with anything, like nothing. And because we were coming off the high, Lost in London took off from that show. And honestly, the next few songs that came out were kind of crap to me. I'm just like, whatever. I'm just going to bang out this remix. I'm going to do this, get it out there. Then we went to Miami. And in Miami was the turning point that I was like, I am now doing this for a living. I just went from a kid that just graduated high school and wasn't really keeping a job because I was too busy doing music, to holy shit, I just made 60 grand for playing records for 4 hours. Like, that was a turning point in my life. And it's when I realized that I actually had a talent for it that was being recognized, which was cool. So we went from Miami, then it was to New York, and then it was out to LA, and then it was back to Miami, and then it was to back to Lizard Lounge in Texas, and then it was back to Miami. Miami, for those in the US, Miami used to be, it's not, it still is, but it was one of the hot spots for like EDM music, trance music, house music back in the early 2000s. And we finished the tour. We got our paychecks, which let me tell you, that was a nice paycheck to get from doing about 11 shows after the initial Myth show. Pretty good. So then Pete and I decided we want to go back to the studio. Well, because of everything that happened, Altered Ego's record label, Abbott and Chris, which is Abbott and Chambers, is their artist name, which we did several remixes for them. They actually asked us to come on board as their A&R of the record label.
A&R meeting?
So A&R is basically, TLDR is when a demo gets sent to a record label, the A&R agents listen to that demo. They decide, does this fit the record label's sound? Is it very well produced? Is it crappy produced? Is there something, if it's crappy produced, is it an easy fix to get the track ready? Is this artist marketable? And everything like that. So we were doing our own radio show, producing our own tracks, doing remixes for other artists, and now doing A&R for the Alter Ego record label. So that was a huge point because it gave me a lot of insider knowledge of the industry. And then from there, we did a couple of remixes that really blew up. We remixed Abbott and Chambers, Where Are You? We did a remix for Ocean Blue, which got really big. And then we also did a remix during that time for Christopher Lawrence, which was a big trance DJ out of LA, and his friend Dave Auday. And if you don't know who Dave Auday is the person that produced tracks for Madonna, Kylie Minogue, Lady Gaga, the Pussycat Dolls, Blink-182. I mean, multi-Grammy winning like producer. So that was the moment that everything started getting serious with like, okay, you're now touring, you're working at a record label, because we pretty much had gotten to be at that time when all that was over the span of, I'd say, about 8 to 9 months that all that happened. We now had become second in line to running that record label, Alter Ego Records, to Abbott and Chris. So it was just a lot going on at that time. And we still toured. We went overseas several times. We played in the Netherlands. We played in Belgium. We played in Germany. We played in Ibiza. We played in this really cool club in Paris, which was like, during the daytime, it was like this bistro. But then at night, it was like this outdoor club. It was really cool. We played down in Miami at several winter music conferences. Like it was just this great experience going out and exploring and seeing the world and touring. But man, oof, it was rough to be in your early 20s going through all of that.
So, I mean, we have this vision, I think, of touring, and it usually comes from TV and movies and whatever. And often it involves, it's kind of sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of lifestyle, sleeping on buses. I kind of wonder if maybe it sounds more like you were sleeping in planes, but I'm curious about what that was like. When you were touring around the United States, were you flying everywhere? Were you taking a bus? And then how much downtime did you have in between? Or was it back to back kind of stuff?
So at first it was like spurts. So everywhere we went, because we were big enough that we could put on our riders, and your riders are basically something you put out. If somebody wants to book you as an artist, your rider is like, hey, I want my flights paid for. I want my hotel paid for. And in the green room, I want 100 brown M&Ms and only 100 brown M&Ms, which a funny thing on our rider was a case of Red Bulls.
Shocking.
And Starburst. That was the only things we wanted. That's all we cared about having. Like, and unlike a lot of DJs, we didn't really drink when we were like during our sets. We might have one drink during our sets to kind of just get loose and get in the mood. But there are DJs that will down like a half a bottle of vodka during their sets. And I'm just like, how can you concentrate with what you're doing? Like, just enjoy the moment. But it was literally go to a gig, get there. It got to where we were getting there maybe 3 or 4 hours before the gig. Go to the gig. You play your 3 or 4 or 5 hour set or however long your set is.
Were they really that long, Boktai?
Yeah. Some of
Sorry.
them were like 5, 6 hours.
And what size audiences were you looking at? Was it a few hundred?
Some of the audiences reached up to 5 and 6,000.
Okay.
And it was one of those, you'd go back to the hotel room, you would have enough time to get a shower, maybe grab a bite to eat, and you smack, you're on a plane headed to the next place, and you'd literally just sleep on the plane. And then you get to the next area where the next gig is at. You're there 3 or 4 hours early, get off the plane. Now with international gigs, you had a little bit more kind of like downtime between it because of the length of flights from the US to the EU. And a lot of flights, we tried to just say, hey, let's do a nonstop. We can sleep on the plane. We can work on music on the plane. And so, like I said before, it was kind of came in like spurts at the beginning. Like it would be this clump of gigs and then we'd be done for a little bit. Then another clump of gigs and then we'd be done for a little bit. But then as we got out there more and more and more to international artists, it became like this, like steady. It was constantly, okay, this Friday, this Saturday, this Friday, this Saturday, this Friday, this Saturday. Okay, we get a week off to go to the studio and work. And while we were touring, we were still having to go to like other artists' like studios and record our radio shows because we had running weekly radio shows on 2 different internet stations. So we were having to do that on top of doing our A&R work and our own song productions and our remixes for other artists while touring. So it's a fun lifestyle. Let me tell you, it is a very fun experience because for me, I was doing something I loved. I
Right.
enjoyed the music. I enjoyed sharing the passion and the journey as a DJ and even writing my own music. But eventually it just took its toll on me and it took its toll on Pete. Like we were just, because you got to think, I went from being this 16-year-old kid that just started this for fun to by the time I was 22, 23, I'm making 150 grand a year, but I'm home maybe a month total out of that entire year.
Right.
And I wanted to still enjoy my early 20s, which, I mean, some could say make the argument I was, but at the same time, I was like literally working during that entire time.
So, when you're doing this work and things, and is it just you and Car? Who's all traveling with you?
Usually it was myself, Pete. Sometimes his girlfriend would go with him.
Mhm.
And we had a US manager and we had an EU manager. And
Oh.
if it was a US gig, it was from like this talent agency out in LA that they would meet us there at the place. Usually they didn't travel with us in the US, but they would be there. Like when we got to the location, they would make sure everything was right. Our rider was met. If we needed something, it was taken care of. And then the EU, it was once we landed wherever our initial stop was in the EU, that EU agent would meet us and then stay with us while we were there. Because usually when you go to tour, like in the EU, or if like you're an EU artist coming to the US, you basically book a circuit so that you're there in one continuous time frame. You're not having to fly back and forth between international countries. So we would have the one agent with us in the EU as we traveled around the EU till our last stop.
Mhm. And do you bring your equipment?
At that time, we had gotten big enough that we didn't have to because we were playing in these super clubs. Again, we were playing in places like Ibiza where these clubs hold 1,000, 2,000 people in them. So back then, we were using CDs and CD DJ decks. So we would just bring our big CD binder with us. And so I'd have mine and P would have his because we still kind of had like different musical taste when it came down to like our personal preferences. But the one good thing about Peter and I is we had this chemistry on stage. Like we didn't even have to talk to each other. We immediately knew this song's going to go after this song because we never planned our sets ahead of time. Unless it was like a festival like Tomorrowland or like a big festival, then of course we're going to plan out our set to make sure it's exactly an hour or an hour and a half. We know exactly what we're going to play, what we're going to do, bing, bang, boom, that's it. But in like the clubs and the touring venues, we really just went based off of how the crowd was reacting.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And so you're kind of touring around. You did some tours in Europe, some tours in North America. Not a lot of sleep. Probably a lot of drinking. Probably a lot of substance use, which was legal in some of them places. So let's just put that out there.
It happens in the industry. I mean, let's be real for a moment. It happened to people like Avicii. That wasn't too long ago that happened, that it got to Avicii. It happens to a lot of artists because let's be real. I'm a 21, 22-year-old kid. I am getting whatever the hell I want. If I said to that manager, I want a line of cocaine, it happened. Mm-hmm. Like, you were being catered to, which was great, but it's also what is the downfall of a lot of like TV stars and musicians and artists and anybody in a super high-end position in a creative field. You're treated like royalty, no matter what.
And no one's there to help you set limits, right? They're not like mom and dad are a continent away and you're already older, but there's no one there to kind of be like, hey, dude, we need to slow this down a little bit. And I mean, it's just one high to another, because then you get to the performer side too, right?
Exactly. Because it was for me, because I got exposed to it at such a young age, where most DJs didn't start till their mid to late 20s when they started blowing up. It was so early for me that I was constantly chasing that high from the show side of it.
Mm-hmm. So we should play some music. It's been a while.
Sure.
What do you want to play? Give us some context for something.
Let me go through here. In fact, what we'll do is, I was talking about that song that Peter and I had finished in the hotel room literally before the gig at Myth. This is that song. I'll skip forward a little bit so the audience can kind of hear the energy in the song. But this is the song that kind of defined us after every day. And my favorite part about this entire song is the breakdown.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if this was the one. Sounded right.
Let's see. I'll skip forward into the breakdown. And so the vocals that you hear in this song are actually Jenna's vocals from Every Day, just recycled over. Like some of like her trills and just her runs that were in the raw recording. We used that in this song to make this audio bed of vocals you hear. The song's still just.
Y'all enjoying it? I also just learned that never give Boktai your vocals unless you're willing to let him use them for the next 20 years.
True. As a good musician, any resource I can use when I'm working on a song to make it sound good, I will use. Now picture yourself, to put y'all in my shoes. Close your eyes and picture at this moment about 1,500 people in front of you. They've never heard this song in their life. And they are going ham to this build-up. And so and that's one of the videos that are out there on YouTube. You can find from that Myth set is the moment during that build up right when it dropped, and you just see the sea of people. They're calm, kind of just floating through the breakdown, to all of a sudden you just see all the people in the club doing this in emotion when the drop happened.
Yeah, the impact you wanted to.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? When something hits, when people enjoy what you're doing, it makes a big difference.
And you really don't know, especially in the EDM scene. Like you can be sitting in your studio and you're just like, fuck yeah, this is the best song I've ever done. But you may go out there and play in a set and it just bombs. Nobody likes it. It doesn't react the way you want. So it's important, like if you are producing music, honestly, in any genre, if you have a way to get your music out in front of people, do it. See what their responses are, because you may think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, but if nobody else likes it, you
Yeah.
know, especially if you're wanting to sell or like get your music on record labels.
Well, and I mean, these days there's different ways that you can put out music now that are a little more accessible. You don't have to necessarily be at the point where you were, where, I mean, you started off pretty aiming for something fairly professional right from the get go.
And I did. And I'll be real too. I had a lot of dominoes fall into place just because of the time I got into the industry. And nowadays it's great. I was thinking about this morning in the shower about talking about this on the show. When I started out, we still had to print like our demos for the record labels onto CDs and mail it to these record labels. And
Mhm.
so you might send a demo off and not hear back for 4 or 5 weeks, which nowadays it's great for artists because you can now digitally upload that MP3 in a heartbeat. They can listen to it and respond with you in 24 hours, and then you can be signed and your music can be out there, which is really cool.
It is really cool. I saw when we were researching this that there's even some vinyl kicking around.
There he is.
Yeah.
That's how old I am. Why you gotta make me feel so old?
Oh, vinyl is. Have you not been listening to the kids' Boktai? Vinyl is all new again.
It is. It is.
Definitely makes a difference. Do you have a favorite performance, like a favorite live one? You told us about.
So my number one performance would be that opening gig at Myth.
Mhm.
It really would be, because that was the moment that truly turned everything for myself and Peter. Best experience, playing in Ibiza. Playing at Amnesia in Ibiza was just, it's one of those things like you hear people talk about, even if they're so big, but you hear like talking about playing at like Woodstock or like a huge event like that, what it's like for that artist, even if they're this, multi-platinum selling artist, that experience of going on that stage and seeing those people in almost like, this is going to sound so cliche, but that spiritual connection in that moment with all those people, that environment at Ibiza is that for EDM DJs. Is that Ibiza is like the mecca, the holy place of EDM music. It doesn't matter your EDM genre. Ibiza in Spain is the mecca for it. Like that is where it started for most of the world, and that honestly, I say that's where it'll end when EDM ends. And if you ever get a chance, just go to Ibiza. It is a beautiful place. The water, the beaches. It is just like Cafe Del Mar. So amazing.
I was actually going to ask you that. When you were traveling, did you actually get to see anything while you were traveling?
Yes, I always made it a point that even if Pete and I were cutting close for a flight, I would try to at least see one landmark somewhere if I was there only for a day. If even if it's, like the stupid little pub in London, if it's the closest thing and it's got some historical value, I wanted to at least go see it, being the history nerd I am.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. All right. Do you have a favorite song?
Favorite song? Um, it would honestly be the progression remix I did for Ken. I don't want to butcher his last name. I don't want to say Icharo. I think it's Icharo. Um, when Peter and I had separated, so Peter got a job, kind of fill in the time gaps here. Peter got a job as like a VP at IBM, um, up in St. Paul. So like his time commitment just couldn't be there. And let's be real, he was being offered like, I think 800,000 a year at that time. So touring's fun, but when you can make a lot more money and be at home with your girlfriend, future wife right then and there, you can then make music a hobby. So I kept trying to pursue a career, and I ended up going in working at a record label with my friend Barry, which was Amplify Records. And I was doing a lot of the promotion and the PR and the A&R work for him because he was starting as like a small indie record label. And that eventually gave me access to some remix work. And it's honestly the last truly released song I have. I've had other things released under some other aliases, but they didn't see much traction. And it took me like 2.5 months to finish this remix. I kept telling him, I'll get it to you, Barry. I'll get it to you. I promise. This was back in 2011. I was like, I'll get it to you. I'll get it done. Finally get it to him. He finally gets it out. Literally, this song blew up overnight. Like, I am not kidding. Like, it just, bam. And honestly, I went like a week without even realizing it because I was just like, I'm so tired of hearing the song. Like, I'm good. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to just chill, play some games, work on my other songs. And this song blew up.
Right.
Like, I mean, people that I had worked in the industry with that were still megastars in the industry were playing this song. And this was probably almost a year and a half after David and Cara had separated.
Right. Can we hear it?
Sure. Let's play it. This is probably my favorite production I have ever done. And Brock knows this. I know he's listening to the stream. He's heard me play this song multiple times. But like, if you've got a good pair of headphones or anything, crank it up and just enjoy this song. And I'll do something here for the audience. I'll kind of like go through my production process in my head as the song is going. So I had built like this section you are like hearing right here. I had literally sat on this for like 3 weeks, and that's all I had. Like, was just this hi-hat pattern and this bass drum. And then I was like, okay, I want a bass line that represents like, what is my solo sound? What do I sound like solo? And the bass line you're about to hear is what I came up with. And what's funny is this has so much swing on the bass line. Because normally you would see like in a bass line for like EDM, it'd be like point, point, point. So it'd be like kick drum, bass, 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 kick drum, bass, bass, bass. But I was like, all right, I'm just going to swing this, add some like blues swing to it just to see what it does to the bass line.
Apparently good things.
Mm-hmm. And like, there is a artist by the name of Sander Van Doren, which had done a song kind of similar. And I was like, okay, what can I take that I like about his song and somehow make something like that from my song? And so that's where you're going to hear like some, like the chord stabs and then the swing that comes in on like all the instruments after that point. You kind of hear like everything kind of has like this little groove to it. Instead of just like straight down the line, it's just got a little. And this was really the point that techno and like trance started kind of getting together and having this baby, which was tech trance, which then gave birth to those that follow EDM nowadays to the big room sound. And then we get to the part that I love about this song, this breakdown. Like this breakdown was literally done in a 1 hour session. I came up with this, smacked it in there and said, this is it. It just kind of like, that's it. I did it. It works. But the favorite thing about this song is nobody expects the drop to be their drop for this song. They expect it because of my past as like a trance DJ and like you're hearing the chords and stuff now to be like this big, euphoric, epic kind of like melody sound coming out into the drop. But I will tell you, chat, this drop is dirty as fuck. Like, you will not be ready for it when it happens.
I think they're ready. Just saying. Should we turn it up a little?
Go for it. All right, chat, here it comes. Oh, I still get goosebumps. And then it just is straight, just bass in your face. And so, I mean, honestly, to this day, this is my favorite production I've ever done.
All right, I'm gonna pull it down just a little bit. I don't know how they're hearing, but you know, that works. And so this was one solo kind of post David and Carr.
Yeah.
You figuring out your own sound too without someone else.
Yeah, that's exactly what a lot of it was this was me starting to find my own individual voice, taking all those years of experience building up to this point, allowing me to get to the point that I am just like, okay, I can actually do this. And so I took a little time off from that and kind of refined my sound to be this almost a breed of like house music and trance music, which is now like really popular apparently, because I hear it all the time. I mean, that's where, like, when that breed happened between the music, that's where you got people like the Swedish House Mafia. Everybody knows who the Swedish House Mafia is. You've heard their songs on even pop stations and in malls and everything. Then you've got Axwell and Ingrosso. You've got Avicii. You've got Nicky Romero. You've got David Guetta that really blew up from like this combination of like trance music and house music coming together. But I was still not happy because I'm not always a fan of like the happy, uplifting, euphoric melodies. Like sometimes I just like shit to be dirty, yo. I like just a good old dirty bass line in a song. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where it best describes my sound now. You can find a lot of it on my SoundCloud, which the artist name I go by now is David Miner. And I believe there's a link. I think chat can type !media and there's a link somewhere in there to my SoundCloud. Those that are part of the OmniPixel community know I've done a DJ mix or two for y'all. Used to do a weekly radio show on SoundCloud. But of course, that was one of those things like, at this point in time, building up to David Miner, I was doing a lot of that ghost production, doing a lot of like ghost remixes for people, just kind of doing music enough that it's satiated that itch, but being very cautious, knowing like, hey, this could lead back into this lifestyle. Do I really want to have this lifestyle, or do I want to continue to be, enjoy the music, enjoy making it, but not pushing myself to the limit every day. And I mean, nowadays, if I was to start touring again, I'm smarter. I know what to do. I know how to handle it. I know how to cope and deal with the ins and outs. You know, make yourself scarce, but make yourself known. All of those insider tricks that any artist could tell you after several years of touring. No matter how big or small the artist is, it's things you just learn over time. So would I do it again? Honestly, I would say hell yeah. But it would be on my own terms of touring again. And of course, nowadays we've seen, thanks to COVID, you can do virtual concerts without a problem.
Yep. Yeah. I had the fortune of watching you stream some music production at one point back in your private channel, way back when I first met you, like 3 years ago. OmniPixel Concert 2021.
I just might. You know, if we could get 100 subs, I just might.
Oh, yeah. We could make it a sub goal.
There we go.
Maybe you could have a few people. Maybe you could have a few people. 'Cause there's more content creators in this community too. More music creators too.
There
So
are.
maybe you
I
could
know a
have.
few of them are lurking around in chat. One of them that I've been trying to work with. um, that being said, uh, I would love, like, I still love, like, I will sit down and I'll go through phases, and Brock hates it, but I will go through phases of I just want to work on music.
Hmm.
It's almost like a wild hair, like it comes up, and I'm just like, I've got to do it. I've got to make a song, and I'll make 3 or 4 songs, and then I'll take a break. Then I'll make 3 or 4 songs, then I'll take a break. And I've gotten to where I'm so critical of myself. Like, I will not let a song go out until I feel it's good. But that isn't that the curse of all artists? Like,
Hmm.
we're our own worst critics.
100%. We hear all the flaws, and we know what we were trying to do, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
but no one else knows what you were trying to do. They just know what you did, and usually it's pretty darn good. So that makes a
Oh,
difference.
well, on behalf of all the artists in the world, just thank you. That means a lot hearing people say that, because that is one of the realest struggles. Is just like never feeling like what you're doing is up to par.
Can I give you my philosophy about art? Like art being a very large thing. Whether it be because I have some history in writing. That's probably the only creative endeavor I can actually semi lay claim to. I'm not the most creative soul. And people I know a lot of content creators. I follow a lot of streamers who do art and things. And one of the things I really truly believe that art is a human endeavor. It's something that as human beings we're drawn to do. Sometimes it's a very small draw in our lives, and sometimes it's a very big draw in our lives. But I think it's part of what makes us human. And so, of course, great art should be celebrated, but the act of creating should also be celebrated. So whether that's like if I'm out there trying to draw something, if y'all ever get me playing Scribblio, you will know that I cannot. But it's part of being human, and so we should really recognize that it's part of our expression of who we are, and therefore beautiful.
I agree. Very, very well said.
Thank you. That's my little art philosophy. Does anyone have any questions for Boktai in chat? Is there anything we missed? Sorry, David, in chat. Is there anything we
Yes.
missed?
Pour all the questions on me. I'll be glad to answer anything. I am an open book with this part of my life. Is there anything I would have done different? Honestly, if I could go do something different from all of it, I would have put a lot more focus on learning more of the musicality side, because the part of the reason like why I always worked in a duo is, again, not being actual formally trained like somebody like Brock or Peter that were brought up learning to play the piano and put melodies together from a kid. um I had to learn a lot of that myself, because marching band and stuff in high school and everything, that only teaches you so much. You don't learn actual composition and music theory. And so I joke around saying I can sit down and play any instrument by ear, which I can. And that just came from years of like training my ear to the sound. But if it's like, hey, you need to write a melody for this, sometimes my brain's just like, nope, I can't do it. I don't know what I'm doing. So at that point, I am just, that is always my weakest flaw. So if I could go back and redo anything from all of that, that is what I would do. Is I would redo and learn how to actually do proper music theory and music composition.
You hear that, kids?
Education.
Let your mom make you take piano lessons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good outlet. Music really is a good outlet.
Mm-hmm. You got to learn. Did you ever get a crowd that just didn't really react? There's a good question.
Early on, I did, because I did not have the skill that you'll hear a lot of DJs talk about. Is I didn't have the skill of reading the crowd. I mean, you'll hear musicians say that and comedians say that. I didn't have that skill when I first started out. So I would go to do something on a set or play a gig, and the crowd just be dead. And that was because I made poor music choices. I didn't pay attention to what they were reacting to, what they weren't. Was I being energetic on stage, or was I just being a lump in the stone up there?
Mm-hmm. I went to, totally off topic, but that's okay. I went to a Offspring concert. It was outdoors. There was a wicked storm leading up to it. It's rush seating, so we're all drenched. This was like 2 years ago, by the way, y'all. We're drenched, we're cold. I mean, even in Alberta, it's not that warm in August after dark, right? It's getting dark, everything. And they start off slow and then they start flogging their new stuff. And by the time we all left, like their encore, half of us were leaving through their encore and people were dancing on the way out. If they played that shit while we were in there, they would have had a very different experience, right?
Exactly.
So it was interesting to me. I was like, oh my God, you guys, this crowd is too depressed for this. You need to give us the old hits, dude. Worry about flogging your new stuff later. Anyway.
Exactly.
All right. Just looking. I don't see any more questions. Just making sure people have the opportunity.
Well, you know what? I think while we're waiting, they should actually see young Boktai in that studio tour video I have.
Okay, let's do it.
Holy.
I'll give you the mouse. By the way, he's on my computer, just so y'all aren't like wondering.
Let me find that link. I think it's.
I can vouch that Boktai is an amazing producer.
Let me see. Here we go. Y'all don't laugh at this.
Oh, we can laugh. It's fine. Oh, mute.
Oh, we are muted.
And where all the
There we
magic
go.
happens and where we make our sounds.
Yeah, so you're looking at young Boktai. Yeah, little Bok. Even though I was in my, I think I was 22, 23 when I recorded this video.
What I want to see is the marching band photos. That's what I want to see. Let's ask Boktai's mom.
So let me see if I can find. Okay, here we go. This is where we're going into the actual studio. Oh my God, this is so cringe though.
Here's the famous DJ Tiesto autographed t-shirt. This is from when we played with him on his Elements of Life tour. And now we're going to enter the studio. Boom, boom, boom. Get some lights on here. We got a little lounge.
This also shows you like
lounge around. We watch TV.
how
Play some PlayStation.
long ago but short ago it was because of the technology in the studio.
Just in case, you know. Let's see.
And like grandma's hand-me-down furniture.
Yeah.
The DJ and radio booth. This is where we record all of our great DI.FM radio shows and our guest mix. We've got a bunch of random junk sitting around here too. An old computer, old monitor. But yeah, you get the gist of it. This is usually where we write when we've got projects to do. But of course we don't have anything to do right now because we're not doing anything. We got some miscellaneous junk sitting over here. With my good acoustic guitar. You've heard it on tracks like every day. We've got a couple of more tracks coming out using that. Over here we have
That thing was so out of tune when I strummed it. Oh my God.
you can see a bunch of random CDs. I'm sure you'll see some that you have. Just some extra crap where we buy stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Equipment boxes. And yes, I do read computer music. We stay up to date and active with that. Here you can see the JP8080 on a Yamaha TX81Z. It's got some great bass patches on that. Down here in the bottom rack, just our sound card, a patch bay, an old MIDI patch bay.
To think though,
Right here,
I'm gonna
we've got the
divert here for a moment, chat.
station, good old
All of this
Mac
equipment
G5.
now is
We got our MIDI
like can be
controller.
ran on like a laptop.
Nothing fancy about that. Yes.
But it looks cooler this way.
Is a World of
Truth.
Warcraft mouse pad. Here we got the sound hub of the studio. This is where we listen and we monitor and we mix our tracks. Turn this puppy on.
It's just an arc.
Here we are running Logic 8
Oh, I got it.
in the middle
I got it.
on a remix, as you can see here. I'll show you a little bit more about that in depth. And on our second screen, we run the mixer, where we have all of our effects and everything.
Okay.
And we'll show you more about that in a minute.
Eden's calling you a sound nerd. They're so right. You should see the 1,000,006 settings that exist right now on my computer to make my voice sound a little bit better.
Over here we have some more hardware synthesizers.
Courtesy
We
of
have two JV
David.
880s.
I know technology is great, isn't it?
But the main thing I love about them is they have some deep textural warm pads, and then a U220 sound module, which is we mainly.
So, like that song, I want to divert. I want to take over for a moment. So that song that you saw on the screen is actually this remix right here.
Gone rogue.
Yes.
David took over.
So this was the remix that I was talking about earlier for Christopher Lawrence and Dave Auday. This is that remix. That was what was on that screen that y'all all just saw in the studio. Like, was the beginning of this remix. But yeah, like, it's, I go back and I look at it and I'm just like, you know, I thank you for having this conversation with me, Tree. Like, it brings back so many, like, just memories I enjoyed.
I really appreciate you like spending the time, and I think this is a part of as we got to know each other that I didn't really explore. You're just here for the Bach music. Exactly. And you know, it's one of those things where it's interesting to see where people have come from and where they're going. And that's really part of what we want to do here at Beyond the Pixels, right? Behind the Pixels. It's just looking at, hey, where are people coming from? Where are they going? What's creative? You know, what's going on in our lives right now? That really interests me. So, music is still part of your life?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't think I'll ever get away from music, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. The last thing you worked on?
The last thing I worked on would be one of the songs under David Miner. I want to say, let me pull up my SoundCloud and I'll tell you which one it was. Because it was the last completed song I have is on there.
Can we go out with that one?
Sure. All right. I know which one it is now. I will set it up for you, Mystery.
Thank you.
Of course. Wow. Did y'all hear that voice crack though, Chad?
We've been talking too long.
Right.
Oh,
all right. Here.
We still have that scene on. Oh, that's all right.
Yeah. So y'all can see Boktai. So this would be the actual last song that was completed. And this is because it was signed. I couldn't put the full song up, but this is a snippet from that song.
Fantastic. All right. So on that note, I think I'm going to thank everyone for being here. Thank you again, Boktai, for being my inaugural guest.
Of course, thank you for having me. Seriously,
And
I really appreciated this tonight.
it was really exciting for me too. I was like hinting. I was like, Boktai, we need a first guest. And he's like, oh, do you want it to be me? And I'm like, yes, David, I do want it to be you. What are we going to talk about? Are we going to talk about music? He's like, yeah, we can talk about music. I'm like, fantastic. So we're going to try this bi-weekly for a little while. We're going to have all different kinds of makers, creators, and artists, and we're going to see how it goes. Excuse me, David. I know. I was terrible at calling him that. You know, it's been too many years. Different names. And so, on that note, I think we'll wrap up. Are we going to raid, do you think?
That's up to you. It's your show.
Let's go see who's streaming. Make sure my phone is turned off. The rudest thing a streamer can do. Look at their phone.
Look, it happens. We all live on our phones nowadays.
I only have so many screens that I can look at one time. Anyone know anyone doing a good, do we have any community members, Boktai?
No,
Doing anything that we want to raid?
I don't see any community members streaming currently.
I do not know anyone doing anything like we're doing.
I don't either.
Stick for the raid. We might not raid today.
Oh, hey, the good thing is, chat, we can sit here and jam out.
We could go raid Hamza, who's playing League of Legends.
That works.
Let's do it. All right, guys. OmniPixel raid. Hey, one more little shout out. We need emotes. On our website, there is a forum about let's figure out our emotes. Please, please, please get in there because I really, really, really want us to start getting emotes. Yes. Join that conversation. We need to talk about it. We need to figure out what we want. We're a community. We're not one person, so we need to make those decisions together at least a little bit. And there's a prize. It's a small prize, but it's a prize nonetheless. All right. Thank you, David. And thank you for providing the soundtrack for today.
Of course, I am more than happy to provide the soundtrack for it.
That makes me really excited. All right. Here we go. Good night. See you all. We're going to start raiding, but I'm going to hit this. Thank you.